Mothers Together is a community of women seeking to experience God's love and enjoy authentic community. We have just a couple of announcements before we get started with our program today. First, a quick reminder of our schedule. Today is the second week of our 2-week series on technology and us, presented as a conversation between Wheelie Lim and myself. Next week, Molly Oschatz will be here, and she's going to talk about God and beauty. And what I understand is that she's going to invite us to look at four traces of God's beauty around us and allow our sightings of this beauty to encourage us and to draw us closer to God. All right. We also have a Menlo Park announcement. My husband, Peter Kilner, who has been a BSF teaching leader and an elder here at the church, is getting ready to do another Bible study. This year, he's going to do Zechariah, which is a super cool little book towards the end of the Old Testament. And there's lots of really good material there. There are things about that might help us to follow God and renew ourselves spiritually. There are tips for leaders. And then there are a couple of pretty cool prophecies that point to Christ's first coming and second coming. So that's coming up in April. So hopefully some of you might like to join that. I think if the slide's up there, there's a QR code that you can use to register. All right, so let's go ahead and open in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you that while the world is getting more complicated, you remain the same. You are our solid rock upon which we build our house. We thank you for the precious gift of our children, whom you love more than we do. We thank you for this community that we can rely on for encouragement and support. We ask for wisdom and discernment as we go on this journey to reset our relationship with technology. And we look forward to the blessing that comes from ordering our lives in accordance with what is truly life-giving. Amen. All right, well, we're excited about this second week of Technology and Us because we feel like technology affects all of us, whether we have small children, medium-sized children, or adult children. The material that Wheelie presents today will hopefully help us use technology in a way that leads us to a more flourishing life. So she initially prepared this talk for the Saratoga's Mothers Together group last year as part of a 4-part series. The third video covers helping moms mentor their children as they encounter various situations online. It covers topics like privacy, pornography, sexting, bullying, and the temptation many of our children feel to be addicted to games or social media. So anyone with a school-age child may be particularly interested in watching it. So we're going to have watch parties the week that we have our break in April. If you would like to see the video with a group of people, we will have our regular meetings and you could watch it that way. We're going to try to also get it out to individuals, but not quite sure how we're going to do that yet. All right, for our program, like last week, we've asked a mom to present a mom moment about her experiences with parenting and technology. This week, we've invited Kathy Bowers. She has 1 son in college and 2 sons who have just graduated from college. So she is online on Zoom.
Hi, everybody. Hoping the volume is on. My name's Kathy Bowers. I've been married to my husband, Bruce, for almost 29 years. Next month, we have 3 sons, and they were an adventure to raise, especially in the area of technology. I think that's why I've been invited to give my moment this week. The sons are 25, 23, and 19. So we made it through. That's the spoiler, is that it was a huge battlefield and struggle, and I felt like I was having mom fails all the time through trying to navigate this technology issue with teenage boys. We battled game addiction. We just battled everything. Let me just say, too many mom fails to even count. every day through elementary, middle, and high school. Probably the funniest fail that is one way when early in elementary school, when they were just starting to use video games, and they were healthy ones, but educational, but it was this hack that we thought up, that it's the mechanical timer. So when kids get beyond 30 minutes, they get really engrossed in the game, and they just can't leave it. So they become obsessed. So what we did was, after nagging and time to get off, no, a little more time. We just plugged their console and the TV itself into a mechanical timer, and we turned it on 30 minutes. And at the end of 30 minutes, everything would just shut down, the electricity and all of it. And it was a fail, but it was hilarious because, I mean, it was a low-tech hack to a high-tech problem. And there was so much frustration around that, that anyway, so moms and dads do desperate things in desperate times. So and of course I gave them reminders of 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes, it's going to go off. And then boom, they really came unglued. So that is one of many fails. Another really significant fail was that the older 2 boys, they were part of a friend culture that was really into shooter games, first-person shooter games, which my husband and I just could not stomach. And we were just horrified and thought they're going to become violent criminals, or even just to live day to day with callousness toward human life. And so it was just so upsetting for us that the older 2 just went all in on these shooter games. We ended up losing this battle because they just would go to their friends' houses and play these games anyway, even though they weren't allowed in our house. And so what ended up happening is we just wouldn't see our kids very much. And they really wanted to play these games, and all the friends were together on the games. And by not being open to it, we didn't see our kids very much. And then also when each of their friends were home alone, this was the way they socialized. Actually, the Xbox has multiplayer games, and all their friends from school would just get on and play games together and chat, and this was their socializing habit. And when we realized that, especially when our older one wasn't in that culture, when we weren't allowing him to be part of that, I mean, he would get to school and it's like everybody knew what was going on but him, because he wasn't allowed to log in. So we relaxed that rule just to encourage their social relationships. And the kids that they were with are really good kids. They just like these really awful games. The second one also had the same kind of friend group, and we just caved. We ended up caving. So on the wins, we were able to eke out a few wins over the years. I think probably one of the biggest wins that we can have as parents is to maintain a strong and supportive relationship with each kid. We don't want to compromise on that. The relationship is much more important than, tech issues. So a few success stories, the no tech use at the dinner table, we all would do that, and that was respectful. We got to bond. Location trackers were useful when they're old enough to have a smartphone. The location tracker is just helpful, and it's mutual. They track us, we track them. Over time, we encourage connection with their friends and with family over technology. So we always had this balance in mind that if technology is getting too obsessive for them, really, let's get outside, go to the park, do real life things away from tech, and just try to balance that so it's not so tech heavy. and fun family outings and travel just for the bonding is so important. We also learned that we, and I think I alluded to this, we created limits, but then we're somewhat flexible so as not to damage the relationship, that we really value them and their relationship with friends. So we would hold to the spirit of the law, if not the letter of, what we might have tried. And the big hack was we would host hangouts at our own home with friends. And this was middle and high school, in our garage, which was built out as a rec room. And we'd include pizza and a stocked fridge and all that, including bring your own console kind of parties where the friends would come over and they'd all play their multiplayer game and they'd all be in the same room together having fun. So that was a huge win. And the kids would hang out at our house. So they got to see their friends more, and we got to see the friends too and get to know them better. Another win is just negotiating tech. We use school performance as kind of an incentive to earn more gaming flexibility. So, and overall, the big learnings are, it's just, tech is changing all the time. And these kids are digital natives. They can run circles around us with tech. So whatever we do, they can find a way around. So we found it best to just focus on building the healthy relationship with them and trusting them and learning to teach them how to be responsible and in their time management. So to conclude, I just want to share one more funny story. I have several funny stories, so it's hard to pick. But from our middle school principal, had advice that she gave all her parents at one year, and we found this actually very helpful. It applies to gaming because this is when the Xbox obsession was at its peak, was 7th and 8th grade. And here's what she said: junior high is a time when all the students are having all these ups and downs, emotionally, socially, intellectually, physically. They have a surge of hormones through their body. They are literally riding a roller coaster in their own bodies. So the best thing you can do as parents, which helped us, is to stay on the platform. So while they're riding the roller coaster, we're solid, we're on the platform. And this involves a lot of self-care, anything and everything just to help keep us grounded and healthy spiritually and physically, is really top priority. And that was something we learned about all this through our years of tech battlefields. So with that, I will send back to Deb.
Okay. Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, you're getting a round of applause here in the room. That was really very helpful. All right, so we're going to go on now, and we're going to start the video in just a minute. A little warning, it's a little bit like drinking from a fire hose. Wheelie has so many good ideas. We've done a couple of things to try to help you. One of them is, and I think there's a link going up in the chat, and there's a QR code on the weekly handout, and the QR code will send you to a PowerPoint presentation that goes along with the conversation. So if you like pretty PowerPoint presentations, if that helps you absorb the material, you might want to click on that link that we've made available. The other thing we've made available is just a simple old-fashioned outline. It's the plain black and white document that's on the tables. There's another link going up. And that way you have the main points that she's going to make, and you've got something that you could take some notes on. So I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Well, Wheelie, going back to the goal you mentioned last week of developing a flourishing relationship with God and others, It's just so sobering to read news reports that both mentally and physically, American adults and children are not in a better place than they were a generation ago.
Yeah, sadly, that is true. However, research has shown that incorporating certain protective factors into our lives can protect against a whole range of negative outcomes, such as depression, anxiety, attention problems, risk-taking, impulsivity, decreased academic performance, obesity, and heart disease. So these protective factors are adequate sleep, warm family relationships, physical activity outdoors, being in community, so having friends, serving with others, and proper nutrition. And of course, as Christians, we have the additional protective factor of prayer. So healthy technology use means incorporating these protective factors into our lives.
Adequate sleep, warm family relationships, physical activity, being in community, proper nutrition, and prayer. These are great. As I've been sharing, my relationship with technology is not always very healthy. And since I heard your videos last fall, I've been more intentional about incorporating these factors into my life, and it's been really helpful. It reminds me again of your statement, maintaining a healthy relationship with technology requires that we always return to first principles, rooted in what is truly life-giving, rather than a set of simplistic rules. In terms of prayer, one of my earlier experiences with answered prayer is asking God to help me with my TV addiction. Later, there have been a couple of times when I've become addicted to a game, and I've asked my friends to pray for me, and it really has helped. Now, I expect everyone in this room agrees that we should aim to build all of these factors into our lives. But technology seems to get in the way, doesn't it?
Indeed, it does. Our lives should be so full of what is healthy and life-giving that we have no time or desire for mindless technology use. But that doesn't always happen because, as we discussed last week, technology is everywhere, it is addictive, and is almost always the easiest option. So while we may have less control over our technology use for work and school, we do get to choose how we use it in other areas of our lives. So asking certain questions will help us use technology with care and intention. Now, back in the day, I have plunked my kids down in front of the TV so that I can have a precious hour or so to do the things I needed to. So the TV was an excellent babysitter. It is free, it's always available. But I really dodged a bullet because TVs are not portable, whereas nowadays screens are everywhere, which makes it so much easier to just reach for them as a solution. And we also know from last week that digital content actually makes a child more irritable, and his brain becomes preconditioned to expect high levels of stimulation. But then rather than an all or nothing stance, some questions that can help us be intentional about screen time in this particular example include, what does this screen time look like in the context of our weekly routine? So we're intentionally evaluating the frequency and amount of screen time holistically, or what type of digital content is most appropriate, which may lead us to pick a documentary about animals over a cartoon.
I agree. Having a holistic view of this trade-off between potential long-term problems and convenient fixes for the short term, it's just important. That way we can brainstorm healthy alternatives ahead of time. Technology is not all bad. We know this. It's a tool, and we can use this tool to enhance our lives. Wheelie, what are some of your suggestions around how we can use technology to enhance our life?
Yeah, so let's go back to one of the protective factors and just ask, how can I use technology to enhance my family relationships and be in community with others? So my kids think that Facebook is so boomer, but the parent Facebook page at my son's school has been such an amazing resource for me. It is a wonderful community of parents who are incredibly supportive and generous with their time and their advice, and they have helped me out of a pickle more than once. And then being able to FaceTime with my parents daily has definitely helped soften the mental health impact of the pandemic on them. And then with my own boys, our family group chat has helped us keep in touch with them in a non-intrusive way. So whether it's social media, video chats, or text messaging, technology can be a boon when it helps us bond with real people that God has given us to love, not the 500 other kids in school or celebrities we will never meet. So hooray, if real conversations and deeper connections are happening with the help of technology. But not so great if we're just lurking to see what other people are doing or using these platforms to gossip or to seek attention. You know, technology also makes so much great content available to us, but separate screens can mean separate experiences. You know, so I know of families who choose to watch a movie together every week, and each week a different person gets to pick the movie, which everyone has to watch, like no complaints. So in an era where the algorithms are just feeding us more of what we already like, they are learning to accommodate one another's taste. And it's just a great bonding time for the whole family. And there are also many ways technology can be an outlet for our creativity and help us to acquire new skills. So say if your children are old enough, let them have a go at organizing your family videos and photos to produce a family movie. Your family can find new recipes online, maybe from a different culture, so you can learn to cook new dishes together. Learning languages used to mean a textbook and then sitting in class in front of a real life teacher, but now technology makes it much easier to hear a native speaker and learn useful words and phrases in another language. Something that I didn't have when my kids were younger is podcasts for kids. So rather than watch movies on long car rides, engage them with fun podcasts. There's so many amazing podcasts available now.
Wow, podcasts for kids. Sure, that's a good idea. You know, when Wheelie did her research last year, she identified a number of great podcasts for kids. They're listed on your handout for this week with descriptions, and we'll be putting them into our resource drive file. We're hoping that our Mothers Together moms will add to this list. So in a minute, I'm going to tell you about a form we've created to gather information. When you go to the form, there will be a place for you to add any podcasts for children that you would recommend. We'll add your suggestions to the list Wheelie's already identified. So Wheelie, what are other ideas? I know you've got a whole host of them related to technology that might help us use it in a positive way.
Yeah, well, we can use it to help us engage in and cultivate awe for this beautiful world that God created, you know, instead of keeping us glued to digital images on the screen. So geocaching is a treasure hunt where people look for geocaches, which are hidden stashes of objects. It's a great way to learn navigation skills and as well as the features of your environment while having fun outdoors as a family. And there are more than 3 million geocaches all over the world. So all you need is a GPS device like your smartphone, and your family can go geocaching anywhere you happen to be any day, well, as long as it's not raining. Or have the kids research your next vacation destination and learn about its history, culture, and geography so that they can be more knowledgeable and engaged when you get there. And then to engage with your community, you can go online to learn about the needs in your community and around the world, and then seek out worthy organizations to support or to serve with as a family. So, you know, when you choose to use technology, choose what strengthens relationships, spurs learning and creativity, and stimulates your children's desire to engage our world. And many of the suggested activities also enhance protective factors such as being outdoors, strengthening family or community bonds, or better nutrition. Just be creative and choose what suits your family's interest and schedule, and don't simply settle for what the algorithms at TikTok, Instagram, or Netflix serve up for you. And of course, choose non-tech activities as much as you can.
These are such good ideas. My problem can be, and perhaps some of you have found the same thing, my impulse control can be really weak, particularly when I'm tired or frustrated with what I'm trying to do. And that's me with my fully developed prefrontal cortex. I can only imagine how much less equipped our children are to exercise the requisite self-control. Given the pervasiveness and addictiveness of technology, Will you have a number of wonderful ideas on what we might do to architect our lives and the lives of our children so that our default choices are healthy? In a minute, I'm going to ask you to tell us about them. But before Wheelie starts, let me remind everyone of Marcia's talks in January. I think she called them atomic habits or micro habits. As she wisely pointed out, trying to make too many changes to our lives, it's just not realistic. So listening to our conversation may feel a little bit like you're drinking from a fire hose. If one of the ideas already mentioned appeals to you, or if one of the ideas we're about to share appeals, great. You might find it most helpful to look for one or two ideas to try and let the rest of them go for now.
Indeed, just please adapt the ideas we're sharing based on the age and maturity of your children and what is possible given your life circumstances. And as Marcia also said, when developing a new habit, we want to make the cue obvious and the response easy. So I'm going to offer some suggestions for structuring and setting boundaries around your time and space, such that the cue and the response are tilted towards an intentional and beneficial use of technology. You know, the choices we make with our time are foundational to the quality and tenor of our life. No one plans to spend half a day doom scrolling, but unless we have boundaries for technology use, it can easily happen. So structuring proper boundaries with our time requires an intentional plan to make time for relationships, for sleep and rest, for taking care of our minds and bodies, which are all easily sacrificed if we're not paying attention. And what we most often sacrifice in fast-paced Silicon Valley is rest. Sabbath is part of God's rhythm of work and rest for our lives. However, this rhythm is increasingly being disrupted, such that there are no clear distinctions between work and rest in our day, our week, or our year. And God meant rest to be restorative, but our rest is often not restful. Like, how often have we gone on social media to relax, but ended up more mentally exhausted instead? So within the unique circumstances of your family, establish a routine for work and rest for your family, including, if possible, a tech Sabbath. For example, in the book Tech Wise Family, the author's family aims to switch off all devices for 1 hour a day, usually dinner time, for 1 day every week, and for 1 week every year. This can have huge benefits, especially for teens who are under immense pressure to be on all the time. So setting up a predictable routine, a consistent rhythm to life, is how we tee up default choices when it comes to time. So a time for meals, a time for exercise, a time for family, a time for work, a time for rest, and if you choose, a time for technology. And then set clear expectations about technology use, that specific content is allowed at a specific time, and that unplanned free time is to be technology free.
Talking about a time for technology, it's so addictive. I sometimes find it hard to put it down, even though I know it's time for me to get on with something else. I can only imagine the transition being much harder for kids.
You are exactly right. So just as we do for bedtime, we have to prepare to manage transitions when screen time ends. So let what comes after screen time be something that your child looks forward to. And then for younger children, you can set parental controls to turn off the device's Wi-Fi at a set time and make sure, to turn off autoplay on YouTube. For older children, let them choose when to remind them about the end of screen time and have them set the timers themselves. Teach them how to manage the irritation they feel when they have to stop, and then commend them for immediate response to the timer.
If what makes it tougher for us and for our children these days is that there are just so many legitimate reasons to be using technology, whether for school or for work. It takes almost superhuman willpower to resist the distraction.
Amen to that. So often I go online, say, to look up a recipe, and then I get distracted by social media notification. And before I know it, I've wasted half a day going down a social media rabbit hole. But there are tools to help us manage these distractions. For example, there is an app called Freedom, which works across phones and computers that blocks websites, apps, or even the entire internet, so that distraction-free time can be scheduled when certain tasks need focus and attention. And of course, the mute notifications feature on your phone or on an individual apps on your phone can also be helpful. We talked last week about how we can develop a Pavlovian response to notifications from our devices. So try and set a high bar for notifications from your devices to only the essential ones.
Wheelie, these are great ideas. Your idea that we should consider how we might build boundaries so as to build our child's ability to focus reminds me of an idea a friend of mine shared with me. When her son was in high school, he was having a hard time focusing on his homework. He's gone on to be, well, maybe I shouldn't say, he might know who he is. I should try to keep his life private. But anyways, what the specialist suggested was that he separate the space where he does his schoolwork from the space where he plays. So he could interrupt his schoolwork to play a game, but he needed to move to a new area of the house to play it, even if that meant picking up the laptop and moving it with him. So the workspace and the play space were separate, and this really helped him. You also have some great ideas about architecting our space.
Yeah, because another way to promote healthy technology use is just to think about your physical space. You might fill the center of your home with things that reward relationships, learning, creativity, and engagement, and then put technology out of sight, right? Give a prominent place to board games, books, musical instruments. You can set up a craft table, a dress-up corner, or have pets the kids can help take care of, or let the kids help you out in the kitchen, in the garden, or in the garage. So, and then in addition to setting up good non-tech default choices, it is also a good idea to mark out physical boundaries where technology is allowed and where it is off limits. So one way is to confine your devices to specific locations in your home. So like designate a media table where all the devices need to stay when they're being used. Alternatively, devices need to stay in a common area where others can see what's on the screen. And by doing so, we also cultivate an expectation of having nothing to hide when we use technology.
Yeah, I assume we want to be good role models for our children, but with the prevalence of working from home, it may not always be possible to have everyone working in a common area.
Absolutely. Again, it's not all or nothing. Maybe we can take meetings in a meeting room and then otherwise work in the common area. But even if this is not feasible, there are other ways where we can abide by the same space boundaries as our kids, such as screen-free zones, which may include the bedroom, so no going to bed with your device, the dining table for family time, and the car. Like in my personal experience, the car is an important and often overlooked space, especially for communicating with teens. The car ride home is a part of your daily routine. Your child can't go anywhere. It is non-threatening because there's no eye contact. So our kids can let their guard down. So if at all possible, please protect this space from technology. Talk to your kids, listen to music, or just listen to podcasts together with them. It will be a lifeline for communication during your kids' teen years.
Yeah, many of these are best practices that might work best for families with young children. What if our kids are older and have gotten used to a different way of doing things?
I get that. And I just want to encourage everyone that our kids are not dumb. They are aware of the unhealthy hold technology has on them, but they just don't know what to do about it. So older kids need us to walk alongside them, to understand how they feel about technology and what they need from technology. And then to brainstorm together small steps towards a healthy relationship with technology. So you may yet get to implement some of the ideas we talked about today, not by prescribing them, but by educating them. So I like Rachel's friend's suggestion that she watches The Social Dilemma with her daughter, and then engaging with them on what boundaries can help them use technology in a way that really helps them flourish. Of course, this requires much prayer, much wisdom, and patience. But many of us can attest that God really does hear our prayers.
Absolutely. And I know a mom who was really struggling with this with their child, and she started a gratitude journal, and she found that that really helped her as well, just to practice gratitude for the things that she appreciated about her child and appreciated about technology. Otherwise, I think we can go down this rabbit hole of being just so unhappy with everything going on in our world.
Yeah, it can be so frustrating.
Right? Anyways, thank you, Wheelie, for all your great ideas. We really appreciate all the time and effort you put into researching this very important topic.
You're so welcome. It's my hope that as we moms encourage one another, and as some of us start to implement a few of these ideas, our children will get to see how other families choose to use technology wisely. And so it makes it so much easier if we can do this as a community rather than on our own.
Absolutely. The saying, "It takes a village to raise a child," has never been more true than it is today. Well, with this in mind, we created a forum. We at Mothers Together love forums, and I mentioned it a few minutes ago. Our hope is to capture your ideas so we can share them. I mean, as not in your ideas as wheelies, and we've got wheelies, but as in all of your ideas, all the moms here and Mothers Together, and that we can then share them with each other. So you might have a parental control feature, software, or app that you particularly like. Wheelie mentioned Freedom, but there are many others. Or you found a website that's been helpful as you seek to cultivate a healthy relationship with technology. Or maybe, anyways, there are all kinds of these sorts of things. So to capture this information, we've created a form. The QR code to the form is on the in-person handout, and the link is going up in the chat. It also has a place to add podcasts that your child enjoys. So we appreciate any information you have to share with us. There's a box to check if you prefer to keep your comments confidential.
I hope you enjoyed that. There were a couple of misstatements. I forgot I had said that I would make the list of her podcasts, the children's podcasts that Wheelie recommended. I forgot I said I would distribute that this week. If you I checked, Kathy has it last week, and I'm sure she'll have it next week. We have a link to a folder on Drive that we've put all of this stuff. So if you click on that link, you can find the podcasts that she's recommended. But we're hoping that some of you all have podcasts or websites or whatever that you'll recommend. And so good. So we've got that. And then the other thing, Wheelie was she's such a logical thinker, and she created a worksheet that takes the material that we've been talking about and kind of gives you a place where you could work through and think about how you might want to apply what she said to your own life. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory as to what it is. And if it's at all helpful to you, I hope that you will take advantage and use that as well. Again, remembering Marcia's theory, which I really support, which is we can't think about micro changes. Let's not, I think, to completely redesign our lives is just unrealistic and will just fail. So just little things that we can do to move towards a flourishing life. So with that in mind, I hope you enjoy your time together. Thanks.